All right, good morning. We are live here. Jenni is not with us this morning. She is on vacation, a well-deserved vacation. I really hope that she doesn't try to come in and make comments and take the show over just because I'm not doing it right or she doesn't like something. So I hope she's actually stays on vacation and takes a break and has a nice time. We've got Julianne coming on today. We're going to talk about smart meters and the surveillance state. I think it's so important that people understand just how in depth this subject really is, because you just think, hey, you've got a meter connected to your house. It literally never shuts off. This is something that you cannot turn off in any way. And it's not like your phone. I mean, I know they say like your phone has a battery in it and you can't necessarily turn it off, but you can put your phone in a Faraday cage or you can put it somewhere to where it's actually not surveilling you. You can't do that at your house. So we're gonna have a nice conversation with Julianne about that. I wanted to first touch on the Edmund flag incident once again. So the administrators at Edmund Public Schools sent out this email to families and staff, and I want to just hit a couple things in this email just very quickly here before we bring Julianne on. But in this email, so they basically say, this is coming from Dr. Grunwald. She says, I'm writing today to address the topic of flags that has placed our district in the news for the past week. As we have shared many times, our top priority is to provide a safe learning environment for our students and staff members. That includes working to limit any potential distractions from the learning that is occurring in thousands of Edmund classrooms. You want to talk about distractions? I'll just stop right there. You want to talk about distractions? Have you seen what these kids wear to school, especially these girls? Have you seen it? I mean, I can literally just put up photo after photo after photo after photo. You want to talk about distractions? I mean, come on. And then also classroom conduct. I mean, I have videos. I have a daughter in high school. I had kids in junior high. I mean, you want to talk about classroom conduct and distractions. You know, while the slice of American pie that they're always trying to sell you is, oh, we're trying to keep everything safe. It's so safe and focused. But what I wanted to hit here real quick is in this next paragraph here, it says, it is important for you to understand how we got here. Okay, so she's going to give us some history. It says, our current practice was developed in 2017 as a result of several incidents, including fights and other aggressive behavior at our Edmund high schools, where the American flag, and I'm going to emphasize that, where the American flag was being displayed improperly and grossly disrespected. I have, which we will be bringing out on this show in the future, as soon as we run it completely down. I have some inside information that statement right there is a blatant lie. From what I've heard, the incident that happened in 2017 was not with the American flag, being grossly displayed or disrespected. It was with the political flag, not the American flag. So right there is another reason that we cannot necessarily just carte blanche, just take whatever these school districts say as a situation. So I have inside information on that we will be bringing out. Second, as we go down in here, towards the bottom, the situation has arisen from a misunderstanding about the reason for our practice. But we believe it's an opportunity for unity and constructive conversations. So the practice that they're saying happened from an incident in the past that there was a fight over the gross display of the American flag and disrespect of the American flag. There was a fight, I guess, in the past. So what they're saying here is that's just the misunderstanding of what has happened today. Well, here, the misunderstanding of what happened today, I want you guys to I'm going to read these, but I want you to realize there's much, much, much more to this story than what they're saying. And just like with the transgender bathroom story, where we saw a random post, not even from a gentleman in Edmond, from a guy who has a niece in the schools. We saw this post. We sent in an open records request into the school. We got some details that they actually did confirm that. And then we went and got the police report for that. And then we wrote the article that blew that whole story, where Edmond Public Schools did not say a single word. They did not try to, they were sweeping that entire incident under the rug. And that is exactly, probably, in my opinion, the same thing here. So we've got a girl here that says, I guess Miss Peeler is trying to search all of our trucks. She got into one yesterday and she tried, if she tries to get into mine, I will not let her. You come down here. She's talking to her mom. This is a post that was made on a social media, another Facebook page or something. So the mom says, search for what? She got into this guy's truck that was unlocked and found his dip, and he's now in trouble. She's petty and wants to find anything on us. And then the mom, she can't get in your vehicle. I know, lock it. And then when we go over here to the other side, here's the daughter again. I was walking out of school when a police officer, another counselor, Peeler, and a student were walking towards the truck. Miss Peeler opened the truck door, sat in the seat, started rummaging through his stuff in his truck. The other counselor opened the back door and dug through stuff too. She later hopped into the passenger seat. The cop stood there while the student watched the principal and counselor go through his stuff. I was parked next to him, so I left quickly because I didn't want to get involved. Now, does that sound like just, hey, there's a safety issue with the flag being flown on the back of your truck? Does that what this sounds like? No, this sounds like, in my opinion, this sounds like administrators are actively searching vehicles in the parking lot, trying to get kids in trouble, whatever the fact. And it just morphed into this American flag deal. Cause she said, this wasn't one of the original boys. This was just a kid who had a flag on his truck that parked next to them because they all had flags on their trucks. So is this what we're devolving to, where you have administrators going out into the parking lot, searching your kids' vehicles, whether you sign something or not? And I would probably, we're going to have to look, and maybe we give authorization to the school when we get our parking permit. Maybe they've got some little sneaky language in there that says, yeah, you can search my vehicle at any time for anything you want. Whatever the fact is, they're not being honest about the scenario with the American flag. This probably has quite a bit of merit to it. And trust me, we're going to vet it out and we're going to publish it just like we did with the transgender bathroom deal. And I sure hope that the school is not lying, but we've caught them being, not so honest and upfront multiple times in the past. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of preface that and let you know that we're going to follow through with this, and we're going to see what actually happened. We're going to find out the events that happened actually back in 2017, what that's related to. And then we're going to see if this actually is taking place in Edmond Public Schools, because it sure looks like it is. I mean, here's a mom posting this conversation that she had with her daughter after this incident happened. So anyway, we're not going to let up on that, because in my opinion, that is just another cog in the wheel of us just complying to these people. But we've got Julianne here, so I'm so excited that you're here and we're talking about this subject, and I actually found this information which kind of goes along with that in the first place.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here, Michael. Well, I miss Jenny, but I think is she on vacation? She's
Yeah.
getting away, having some fun. So
Yeah. Well, I told her, I told everybody she better not be trying to chime in here and, and take our show over.
yeah, have fun, Jenny. Just don't turn this off. Turn this off. Go away. Go away.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about all the smart meters, and
Yep.
I don't know if you have. I watched your presentation on that a couple years ago when you came and spoke at the Republican Women's Club in Oklahoma City. I
Uh-huh.
mean, it was literally just like so mind blowing, Julianne. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that it's really as bad as what it is. And I don't think people really realize that. So that's why I wanted to specifically really have you go into that whole smart meter surveillance system, just the whole 9 yards, because it's much more sophisticated than I think people realize.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that people are still watching those old presentations. That was one of my first. So I was
Oh, it
I was
was.
just getting my legs, my presentation legs, and sometimes it's really hard to condense all of this information. But the people in Oklahoma City were, they seem like they really got it. And it's been a couple of years now, and I wish that we were seeing more action on, to fight these topics. But it was a great crowd, and hopefully we can pick up some of those themes today. So, yeah, so the smart meters are for control. Let's just get that out in the open. It's not for, reducing cost to the consumer. As it's often sold. It's not for, you know, being globally competitive in the sense that like the average person would think of market competitiveness. This is about implementing UN sustainable development, which is a program to measure and manage all of our activity. And so one of the main things that they want to measure and manage is our energy use, and they're going to do this through smart meters. Smart meters, of course, emit tons of radiation. And I had a guy come out and test my house. He was an Army veteran and was injured by radiation. He used to work on radar and came out, and he tested all the equipment in my house, and the radiation levels were just off the charts. And the smart meters, whether it's your gas, your water, electric, those emit tons of radiation. And that's not really my specific specialty. I don't look
Yeah.
into how that happens at the
Well, and when we're,
cellular level. I'm more
yeah,
interested in, like you say, the surveillance. But I just want to throw that out there so that people know, that there are going to be all the issues that we talk about today with the surveillance and measuring and managing your consumption patterns, but there's also a major health risk. So that said,
yeah. Well,
um,
I want to just chime in real quick. When you
sure.
say radiation, we're talking electromagnetic radiation. That's what we're talking about here. And I do want to make another point to that, because when you look back through all of time, okay, we've been on this planet a long, long time. And it really, I mean, really, when you think about it, it hasn't been until, the last probably 25 years, kind of max, maybe even just 10 or 15 years. I mean, we are completely, for really the first time ever, just completely inundated with this electromagnetic radiation
Yeah.
from all the cell phones, from all the satellites, from your modems, from your routers. I mean, from now all these appliances. I mean, you've never had so much saturation from electromagnetic radiation. And it just to make another point, that electromagnetic radiation, it doesn't just stop. I mean, it literally goes through everything. So it's like every single cell phone, if you've got a cell phone signal, all the rest of those signals are going through your body at some rate. And I can't, I'm not necessarily going to say this is the cause, but I don't think we've ever seen more issues with health just overall. I mean, I think it is a contributing factor, this this immersion of electromagnetic radiation that we're in. I think it contributes to health issues, but I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
mean, I
people
do
realize
too.
that.
And, when you look at the kids these days, that old phrase that you would hear people say, I mean, I think there's something to that right now. Yeah, I don't have a single friend who has, school-age children who doesn't complain about them being very antsy and not being able to settle down. And some of that is natural childhood behavior, right? But all of us, in my age group, and I'm mid 40s, we say, well, we really weren't like that when we were kids. And I'm using, just sort of common sense experience here to reflect on this issue. But I think there has to be something to it. It's the LED lights that emit frequencies. It is, like you say, the cell phones, the Wi-Fi, all of it. It does just make you antsy. And I think, children's bodies are, they're smaller and they're not able to cope with it. And if we wonder, why are people going to visit the doctor to get, their kids tested for ADHD, some of that I'm sure has to do with all the radiation. And the smart meters are emitting tons of radiation because they pulse out signals to to a receiver with the utility company that can read your usage at any time. And so it's constantly pulsing out these Wi-Fi signals. And it has to be really strong because you have you have competing signals, and it has to cover a long distance so that the utility company can access that information. So I mean, there's been a lot of research on this. It kind of gets into physiological details that are, they're not quite as interesting to me. But I think people definitely need to be aware of it and realize that if you want to be healthy going forward, healthy enough to fight the new world order that's rolling out all around us, we need to sort of tackle these root causes of things, and the radiation is definitely one of them. And I mean, the whole smart city infrastructure is based on what? 5G, 6G, all of
Yeah.
this, so it's a serious issue. I wish I were more competent to speak on the health effects, but heuristically, I think it's a no-brainer. We're all getting buzzed all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a definite correlation. I mean, we're electrochemical beings. I mean, we will, it may not necessarily, I know that they try to say that it's inert and those all that radiation just goes through us and doesn't affect anything. But,
Yeah, right.
in
Yeah, right.
my opinion, and I tell this to my kids, just, as a compliment to how bad all the chemicals and stuff are in foods, we eat these bad foods and all these bad things, they accumulate in your body. Well, that doesn't mean that radiation doesn't affect those things that are
Yeah.
accumulated in your body. Just as a side note, I don't want to rabbit hole, rabbit trail
I
down
know.
there because I
Well,
could, but
well, I mean, this gentleman, he came and he wore a protective suit because he was injured by radiation, and his wife actually passed away because they lived next to a facility that was emitting tons and tons of radiation. This was after he was out of the service. And so then he started putting two and two together and figured out all of the health effects. So he wore protective gear when he came to my house and took the meter everywhere, and you could just see it go off
yeah.
the charts. So we hardwired our house after that and, did a couple of things. I mean, I,
I'm a hardwire. I'm a hardwire also.
I was like, ooh, we're really like geeking out,
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. But it's a big deal. And the surveillance, though, I mean, that is what is really bothersome, and the control of behavior, to me personally. So when we look at how we're moving into this new economy that's based on changing human behavior and delivering outcomes that align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, there has to be an infrastructure to capture what we're doing and then measure the change between what we were doing before some stimulus or intervention or new policy innovation and after. So, you have a baseline situation, and then you know, you have the application of some sort of intervention. Maybe it is, a little ding, that you get on your cell phone that's connected to your utility meter, and it says, "Ooh, your thermostat's up too high today. You better turn it down. We're in an alert day. This is like the grid is taxed, and everything's going to shut down unless you lower or raise your climate, however it goes, 1 degree." And so then maybe some people ignore it, but maybe some people change their mind. Well, the new economy, it works on measuring the effectiveness of those kinds of interventions or nudges, sending a text to your phone to get you to do something after the baseline situation of your behavior has been measured. So you've got your thermostat at 79 degrees. They send you a nudging text, and who has lowered their or let's say raised. I always get mixed up talking about that. And I think it's because as a kid, my mom always said, "Don't touch the thermostat." So I'm like,
Yeah.
afraid of it anyway.
Well, but before you finish that, I want to chime in with one thing, because I think it's important to draw these conclusions here real quick. So you specifically already twice have said this new economy,
Yeah.
and some type of measuring the effectiveness.
Yeah.
So what I want to say from a financial point of view is, when you look at this new economy, which literally is a new economy, the major leaders, the largest businesses, the largest market caps, the biggest players in the world, they're all data companies. Okay.
Yeah.
In the past, rewind, used to all be commodities, used to all be oil and gas, hard asset, commodity type of companies. That's what control the financial realm. Now it's all hardcore, instantaneous, live data. And if it wasn't effective, just to play on your words where they're measuring effectiveness, if this data wasn't effective, these, like the Magnificent Seven, these large cap, AI tech data companies, if that data was not effective, that they're getting farmed in one way or another, all that data is getting to these people. If it wasn't effective, they would not be the largest companies in the world. Sorry, I just wanted to interject that.
That's exactly right. I mean, and so I should figure out how to send you a link, because I just revisited a little article from the UN Chronicle. Let me see if I can. I don't know.
Well, if you get it up on your browser, you can just share it. You can just share that screen or share that link.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. I'm sort of a tech flunky.
That's why you're hardwired.
Yeah, I know, right? I was really so proud of myself.
I have electromagnetic meter that I bought at my house, and I've tested everything. I mean, it's really mind blowing to watch that meter just go into the red constantly. But for those of you that don't have a meter, okay, you're not going to go pay $100 to get an electromagnetic meter. You can literally take this works decently. Okay. It's not near the same effectiveness, but go get an AM radio and just put it on static. And you can literally like walk around, and you can put it around things, and the static will go crazy. So like before I actually bought a meter, I did that. I put it like on my kids' beds, because I at least wanted to get my kids' beds in their bedrooms to where there was the least amount of radiation affecting, their bed where they're sleeping. And that's how we started that. And that radio was actually pretty effective, even compared to my digital meter that I have now. But
Just a
that's just
regular AM, a regular
yeah,
radio put on the AM setting.
yeah. Just put it on AM on a static. You can
Mhm.
you can kind of test it. You can do like a low or a high, but for the most part, if there's something electromagnetic, it's gonna just hit the transist. It's gonna hit the resistors in there and just kind of make them kind of
Ah,
just make some noise.
buzz.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if it does that to the radio, then of course it's gotta be doing something to our
yeah.
bodies, right? And then
Exactly.
it has the effect on our mind, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's pretty serious stuff. Okay, I don't know if I can screen share it here. You might have to set that up for me, but I sent you the link to this little UN article. This is from
Oh, you did?
2015.
You emailed it to me?
It's in the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah,
if
I'll
I
get it.
if I did it the right way.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it and put it up there real quick.
But so you were talking about how the controllers of the new economy are these data companies. And so people have to understand uh, you know, what is valuable about this data. It is the ability to, you know, it captures our behavior, and then it can be processed through, AI models, through predictive analytics models, to come up with a pretty accurate picture of what we're going to do next. And then in this new economy, you have financial speculators who can make big bets. That's one of their phrases on whether or not the outcomes that they think will happen are really going to happen. So it's just like a casino game, and it all runs on information. So if you look here, the title of this is, of course, Sustainable Development Goals for Energy. So that's your smart meters right there, and Information and Communications Technology. So that's your data. Um, ICT, that's short for Information and Communications Technologies. That is the new oil. We're
Yeah.
not in a commodity that you can use up, that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can dig out of the ground. We're looking at information. So let me see here. If we look at, let me see how many paragraphs down this is. They're talking about adopting SDG 7, which
Yeah.
is about renewable energy. And of course, in Oklahoma, this is a big issue as we're, you know, putting in wind turbines and, doing carbon capture and solar and all of that garbage. So they want to adopt SDG 7. And it says, there's a paragraph, the adoption of SDG 7 comes at a time when the world faces serious energy development gaps. Now, this was written in 2015, right? More than 1 billion people lack access to electricity. Approximately 85% of our global energy mix comes from non-renewable sources. And it says, the financial scale of the investments needed for traditional electricity grid access is also high when compared to resources available. So they're setting up this crisis scenario, right? The people don't have electricity. All that like appeals to the progressives who want equity and everyone to have the opportunity that's going to come with being connected. And then it also appeals sort of to the conservatives who want to be prepared to face all risks, or actually prevent those risks by having infrastructure developments and a grid system that can handle the load. Now, I'm sure you're thinking this, Michael, like the load that is majorly driven by these data processing centers. It takes an enormous
Yeah.
amount of energy to run those. So keep that in mind when they're telling you that you need to, increase your thermostat by 1 degree.
Well, and just so I can chime in one more time on that,
Sure.
I don't like the fact of just answering to whatever technology is telling me to do. So if you're
Exactly.
just used to just, hey, you got a ding, oh, let's just raise the thermostat up. Oh, you got a ding, oh, let's unplug a couple things. Oh, you got a ding, oh, let's do this. I hate the fact of just surrendering to some notification that's monitoring my behavior. I mean, that's just my 2 cents, Juliet.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get over this complacency.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, oh, the machine told me to do it. You know,
Yeah.
I had to drive a friend's car home. She had an eye injury, and so her husband took her home, and I had to drive her car. And it was, I don't know, a 6-year-old car. Mine is a lot older than that. And every time I would switch lanes, this is on the interstate highway, you know, there's no one around. I'm not going to put my blinker on all the time. But if I merged into the other lane perfectly safely, no one's around, then the car, it dinged at me, you know? I mean, I guess this is standard now, and I was unaware that this was going on, but it made me so angry. Like, this machine is dinging at me to tell me that I'm behaving badly,
Yeah.
that I'm not driving well, and no one was hurt. I was perfectly safe. I got to my destination, and why it seems irrational to me to signal when there's no one else around, right? So that's just
Well, I'll give you another example. I was in the car with, I was riding with a friend of mine, and she cannot drive without Google Maps being on. I mean, literally
Oh,
100%.
uh-huh.
So we're driving up north, and we're going up 35, and you know where it's kind of splits right there at Guthrie at that first little exit south Guthrie, and then you can,
Uh-huh.
go on to, I can't think of what that road is, but anyway, it splits. Well, her Google Maps was telling her to, so we were just going up 35. So instead of just staying on 35, it was going to have her go get off there, turn around in one block, and then get back on.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and I literally, she said, she's like, she started panicking. She's like, well, this is telling me I have to go this way. I'm like, no. I was like, the road is fine. We're going straight. Don't turn. I mean, she was literally about to have a panic attack because she wasn't going to follow what her Google Maps was telling her to do.
It's bad. And it trains people not to be able to think. So all this is I don't know, it's a little embarrassing. So I try not to use the Google navigation ever, you know. Sometimes I'll print out directions from Google and then take it with me, but I always have my location off, on my phone, and even though they can still track you even if you turn it off.
Yeah.
Um, but but even when I have followed Google's directions, it has gotten me that I have printed out, it's gotten me lost more times than anything else, you know? And it does take you these weird ways. And, my kids will say, Mom, you need to follow the Google Maps. And I say, no, like, do you see how many times this messes us up? But, all their friends have, the display in the car, and so the kids can see where they are on the map, and they think that I should do that too. And I said, no, you need to just you need to be able to think for yourself and like learn how to read the street signs and the street numbers and figure it out.
Well, think
But
about this, Julia. Think about when we started driving. I mean, I was literally just telling I got a son that's about to be 16. I said, when I was your age, I said, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have all these maps and navigation. I said, we literally just knew what the roads were, what the signs actually meant, what the
yeah,
numbers on the road signs meant. I said, and we would just go and drive. I said, we didn't have all this stuff.
yeah.
And he was like, how do you even know where you're
What?
going or what you're
What?
doing? I was like,
You did
you
it
just
without a
use your
cell
brain.
phone? Michael, we've arrived at that age where
I
we're like
know.
so old that we're like, wow, back in my day. But I think the kids do listen because, at least mine, they think that the Google Maps is cool because their friends kind of do it. And they like to give they want me to justify my opinions to them too, so they like to push back on me, which that's healthy. But I think they get it, they understand that they're being tracked and traced, and you know that's something that I think anyone who is an adult, especially if you have kids, You need to be aware of how childhood is being destroyed through this intrusive surveillance state. Just the fact that our kids know that they're being tracked and traced all the time, it makes them afraid to make mistakes. It makes them, more uh, deferent to social pressures. And so, anyone who is on the fence about whether or not they need to fight this, just think about how it would be to grow up as a young kid,
Yeah.
knowing that basically someone is peeping in your window all the time.
Well, and they're just literally almost forced into compliance just
Yeah.
because they're so worried about, I mean, I could literally just tell any of my kids that, I got them on video doing this, no matter what it is, even
Yeah.
if it's sleeping in the middle of the night, I say, I got you on video last night, getting up at 2 a.m. And they're like, they're like, I can't, yeah, I didn't mean to do that. I mean, that's all you have to say. But I hate that compliance factor that they're just complying to technology.
Yeah. And so we're just giving up our freedom in so many ways when we do that. And you think, like, this is basic. We ought to be controlling the machines. They should not be controlling us. We ought to be controlling the economy. It should not be controlling us. But, that's going to take a major mind shift for people. And I think perhaps if they understand what something like a smart meter is doing to, you know, to track their behavior in their home, maybe that's concrete enough to catalyze rebellion.
Yeah, well,
Because so what this is going to do is, with the data that is transmitted from these smart meters, and what I was going to find on this little article is it talks about, okay, let's see, where was I before? I read the little section about SDG 7. Oh, okay. So if we go down, I might have to look at my screenshot here because it specifically mentions smart meters, but I had it at a different scale, so I can't find okay. Renewable demand side. Okay, I see. Okay, I'll have to figure out where. Okay, if you look right above the little bullet points, then yeah, then there is a paragraph that says, okay, da, 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 da. ICT can play an important role in conservation and efficiency through sensing and control. The words control and management are used at least, I don't know, 6, 7 times in this short, little
yeah.
post. Sensing and control, that is collecting your data, and then there are access controls that are embedded into these smart meters. So eventually where we're going is that if you don't turn your thermostat down a degree or up a degree, however you want to say it, then the meter will control the flow of energy to your home so that you don't have enough power to run your heater or air conditioner at the temperature that you would like. So we're moving toward, they have to pitch this narrative of crisis. And of course, in a crisis situation, everyone is more compliant. We all defer to authority more. So they give us this crisis scenario, like the electrical grid can't handle the load. And unless you comply, everything is going to just turn into mass chaos. Well, okay, they find out that people still aren't complying. So what do? They use the technology embedded into those smart meters and other devices that are present in your home, whether you know it or not, to restrict the flow of energy to your home. So if you didn't comply with the nudge, then they're just going to use their access controls to shut you out, or
Wow.
to limit
Well,
your consumption. Because why? Because it's a crisis. And so these extraordinary measures can be implemented because everyone, you know, stupidly thinks that the world is going to shut down unless you set your thermostat at 80 degrees, and so it says we're going to do energy conservation and efficiency through sensing and control. ICT can contribute to higher resource utilization through shared systems. Okay, so data sharing. This is like sharing with whom? The government and with the big corporations. So the utility providers are going to, be in cahoots with the government regulatory agencies and enforcement agencies, and also with the big corporations. Shared systems and increased efficiency driven through what? Smarter appliances, infrastructure, and manufacturing, information systems. These can enable behavioral changes and reduce emissions by scheduling loads based on supply. So what we're going to see, and they're already seeing it in Europe, are these peak demand hours, and your ability to turn on your washing machine during those peak demand hours, at first, like I say, you're going to be sort of incentivized not to turn it on. They're going to send you a little nudge, and they might say, oh, you get a discount on your bill if you don't use your washing machine during these hours. That's the carrot that is first. But then comes the stick where you will be unable to use your washing machine during those hours. And people need to think about this. Like, what if what if they say that you have to use your washing machine between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m.? Are you going to wake up to run your washing machine right then? I mean, this is the level of control that we're getting to. And all of the smart appliances that talk to each other through that, Wi-Fi network, and actually we're going to Li-Fi through the LED lights, that tells, utility providers and the government agencies that they share data with, and the corporations, including your employer, which appliances you're using and when. And so, that first they tell you, here's how we want you to change your behavior. And then they say, here's how we're going to make sure that you cannot choose otherwise. Right?
Well, let me give you two examples. These are two real life examples that I have literally experienced personally. Then I want to get your comments on these. So first, my brother moved into a new neighborhood. This was, I think this was when he either lived in Colorado or Ohio. I can't remember which state it was. Anyway, new development, new neighborhood. Everything was smart, smart water meters, smart meters, the whole 9 yards. Well, when they had a crisis, like you said, a drought that was a certain period of time, they literally shut off my brother's water meter, after like 7 a.m. They like, he had to get up and take a shower at like 6 o'clock, because if he didn't, the water would not come out of his shower even hard enough to even take a shower in any capacity. So
this is in the United States.
Yeah,
right?
This is here. This was several years ago. So this was probably about 5 years ago, because he called me. He's like, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. He goes, you're not even going to believe it. So even though they told him, hey, you're going to be on water rationing on these days after this time. I mean, he's like, okay. So he gets up, takes a shower, to go to work. Water's not even coming out of there. So that's one.
See, this is happening, right? People in the US don't get this. Like, this is actually happening. And through social media, then I'll end up having conversations with people in Europe, especially in the UK. They have these reforms instituted already, and whatever the UK is doing, it's coming here next. Or whatever Australia is doing, it's coming here next. They just have to, test and refine these programs that they've developed, these control programs, before bringing them to the US, because it's, it is an armed population, basically.
Well, and
And
Julia says, this is social credit scoring at
yeah,
its finest.
yeah,
And she's 100% right. And on another note, just because I want you to go into the data aspect of it a little bit more. So I still have an analog meter at my house.
hmm
The city is going as wild as they can to get that meter off of my house. And I'm just like, hey, it works fine. There's no issues, and I fought them, for quite a while now. But when they wanted to come bring out, because I refused the guy when he came to my house, even though I already signed the letter and said, I don't want a meter, I don't want
hmm
one of these new meters. So when the guy just showed up to put a new meter on, I just happened to be there. I said, hey,
nope,
this isn't happening. We're not
walk
putting this
away.
meter on. So one of the managers came to my house and he's like, hey, what's your reluctance with this smart meter? I'm like, well, I said, I have
No.
a problem with the surveillance and this and that. I said, why don't you do me a favor? I said, why don't you, first of all, give me the maker and model of this meter? And I said, second, I want to know, I said, you're putting this meter in. I said, you should know. I said, I want to know the data parameters that it's sending out. I said,
Yeah,
obviously, it's going to send out date and meter and your usage. There's probably 15 or 20 different data parameters, that it's going to record, that you would expect to record and send
yeah.
out. Well, guess what, Julianne?
Oh
This
no.
meter, it was all proprietary and it had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data parameters. And he said, we don't even have access to it. I said, there you go.
Really?
I said, are you kidding me? And this meter escalated all the way up into an international company that wasn't even American. It was over in Europe somewhere.
Yeah,
And they literally make all these meters.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because I know it's coming because I've read all of these white papers. But when you hear you know, about it happening in the concrete, it is still shocking to me, right? I mean, I I looked at an article. Oh, I've looked at so many; they all run together. But it's been a couple of months, and it was talking about people analytics and having billions of points of data on each individual,
Yeah.
and people simply cannot fathom how that works, right? Um, but this was billions with a B, and it was an industry publication, so they don't have any incentive to inflate that number exactly, but where are they going to get that? They're going to get all of those data points from the total surveillance state that is in your city, that's in your car, that's in your home. And if people do not understand how valuable that data is to a group of really sick and twisted people who are bent on controlling the population, I don't know what we do. They've got to figure this out because, you know, through that network of radiation, of Wi-Fi communications, of ubiquitous data sharing, you know, we have well, these giant companies have a better picture of us and our motivations and concerns than we ourselves have, because we just have minds, brains, but they have quantum computers, right? And I mean, you can just Google that phrase. The AI will know you better than you know yourself, and you're going to come up with any number of articles that talk about how that's true. And it comes from all of these billions of data points. And just like you say, they are selling this information, selling it. And that is, it's bad enough in and of itself because it's voyeuristic. And I just think you should not be spying on people, right? It's
Yeah.
ugly,
Well,
but
and
it
think about,
makes a profit.
yeah. And think about this. I mean, really, for the first time ever, you have literally live results. So all
Yeah.
these major companies, and we're talking about the AI within them, which is like at Meta and places like that, and Amazon. So they've all got AI, they've all got our data. But what they're doing is literally in live time, they're recording what makes you react.
Yeah.
How, does
Yeah.
this color or this size or this sound or this frequency or, one of a billion, like you said, data parameters that they have, they can put all those in, and they're literally just refining themselves and making themselves, even better and better every single day, because they have instant feedback from us, whether it works or not. Where this isn't like when you and I grew up and you'd have to send out, a newspaper article and write it this way, or a postcard and write it this way, and have 2 or 3 different ones to see which one actually worked. And you had to wait, a month.
Yeah.
This is literally, we make decisions every single day, every second. We're going to enhance this or reduce this or change this. And I mean, they get instantaneous data right back from us.
Yeah.
We're just feeding right into the power of these monsters in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And so then they can predict. I mean, they run these simulations and they can predict our behavior before it happens. So they can intensify our behavior and they can send you targeted advertising, right before the models show that you might be thinking of purchasing a candy bar, you know?
Yeah.
Then they can send you some sort of stimulus. And it doesn't have to be something like a text on your cell phone that seems very obvious. It could be, some other environmental factor. Maybe it's a change of lighting. There are all sorts of studies that talk about how lighting can affect your mood and your productivity and your emotional state. And when we think about smart homes and smart buildings, those lighting controls can be adjusted by an AI that is programmed to increase your productivity, to the owner of the AI's goals, right? So this is the level of control we're moving toward. And this is, another thing that people need to think about, especially with the smart meters and smart appliances, is that, this data isn't only being sent to the big bad guys that we've mentioned, Google, Meta, the government. It's also being sent to your employer. So if you work from home, then you will be tracked and traced at home. Your energy usage will be tracked and traced at home by your employer. Now, why is that? It's because companies are having to submit ESG reports on their activities. If you want any kind of capital investment from the big banks, if you want to do business with large corporations that are signed on to the agenda, then you have to participate in the ESG reporting game. And that's, in simplest terms, it is social credit scoring for business, right? And so every employer is moving in this direction, basically. If you work at any company that has more than, let's say, 25 people, you've probably already seen different measures roll out to track and trace, your behavior. And so part of ESG reporting is reporting on scope 3 emissions. Those are indirect emissions. So, maybe someone's, a business's overall operating model, they're doing something that they're not like digging in the ground for oil, and they don't own a refinery that's pumping CO2 in the air. So, you have some business that's not related to carbon emissions in the most, obvious way that people would think of. Still, those companies that do things that seem not to be creating a huge carbon footprint, they are going to be forced to track their indirect emissions. And indirect emissions include commute time to work, and the route or the mode of travel that employees take to work. That's if you go to work. But if you work from home, then the environment that you work in, your home, will, and the energy that you use while you're in your home environment working remotely, that will factor into the company's indirect emissions or scope 3 emissions. So whether or not you decide to throw your load of laundry in while you're doing your remote work, say you go take a restroom break and you think, oh, I need to put those clothes in the dryer, you know, because I can just do that. And, it takes 2 minutes to put clothes in the dryer. And you think, then I'm going to go back and do my little Zoom conference, right? They can dry. Well, your employer will have access to your energy usage that's transmitted through the smart meter, through these connected devices and connected appliances. All of that information will bounce back to your employer. So not only will you have the government, working with your utility provider to shut off your water, not only will you have the big corporations, uh, you know, hiking rates here and there and doing other coercive things, but you will also have your employer telling you that if you do not comply with, uh, you know, with say peak demand restrictions,
Yeah.
then you're going to be written up. It's going to go on your employee report. You'll
Yeah.
be passed over for a promotion. Or speaking about our kids, if they, once this, say you have a 20-year-old, he lives on his own, he's got all the smart appliances in his apartment and the smart meter, and it reports all of that data about how much energy he uses. Well, say his mom taught him well and he does lots of laundry, you know, that's going to be tied to his digital identity, his profile as a human being. And employers might be less likely to hire him if he's shown a pattern of high energy usage. And,
Well, and
I mean,
let's
your brother's situation where they shut off his water. I mean, what they're shutting off water,
yeah.
shutting off electricity is one thing, but water.
Well, let's go farther down the road into like the risk management side of that, Julianne, because you know who else is going to have all that data? The insurance company. So
Yes.
you're going to
Yep.
be you're going to pay higher rates because now you're deemed, whatever, however you're more of a risk because you use more energy or you don't comply as well or whatever. So you're driving to work, you're going to pay more than, someone that's not driving to work. You're, whatever, that's going to filter all down. I mean, they're going to
Yeah.
get it. They're going to get you one way or another if we allow them to keep going. I mean, but I can see just the very next thing is you're going to have a rating inside your insurance rating,
Yeah.
and it's going to literally go back to all this green, all this smart, all this stuff. And what I want to say is, and I think you agree with me, we don't like pollution in any capacity.
Right.
And they've done a pretty good job of acting like all this green and all this smart is literally pollution. I mean, I'm conservative. I like to save as much as possible on energy, on everything else. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I am just in general. But the way that they've branded all this campaign, it's not about green, it's not about smart. Literally just substitute the words surveillance and control, because
Yeah.
it's about control 100%. And they'll make you comply through the escalation all the way into your insurance, all the way have to pay variable rate on other things when you whatever it is, there's going to be like that, like Julia said with the credit score, there's going to be a score attached to you that's going to change how much you pay compared to other people, or
Yeah.
what you have access to.
Yeah.
Do you have access to water? Do you not? Do you have access to
Yeah.
the higher rate of electricity or not?
People don't get it. I mean, it's just like trying to go buy a car, and if you have, a poor driving history or a poor credit record, then, you would get a loan at 20% interest, whereas someone else could get, 1% interest. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to operate the same way. And if you think about how insurance works, that is a betting game, you know, and now that the insurance companies have all of that data, how do they make money? They make money Making bets on whether or not they will have to make a payout, right? And so their business model depends on getting more monthly payments and subscriptions than the payouts that they have to give, right? So it's just a betting game. And if they have more data on your behavior, and if they can predict how you're going to behave in some circumstance before you're even in that circumstance, then I think the old adage holds: the house always wins.
Yeah.
They are always going to win, and we're going to be, meanwhile, just paying our little insurance premium. And I think in one of our previous talks with Jenni, we were saying about how different city governments are going to require you to have insurance on on your water heater, insurance on some kind of, if you want to do an improvement to your property, then you're also going to have to buy a little insurance policy. And I see with, for example, our heating and air conditioning company, this is a big thing, to sell a service plan, which is basically like insurance. And all of these business models are moving toward that insurance type, gambling model. And I mean, I had another thought that I was going to bring up, but I can't remember what it is now.
Well,
Anyway,
let me ask you
it's
this.
all pretty bad.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Like, with all these smart meters, I mean, obviously, like your electric meter on your house, they don't need to be connected to any kind of network that you provide.
Right.
They have their own network outside of your access.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to see that like with refrigerators and toasters and LED lights, to where they don't necessarily have to connect through our networks, like our home Wi-Fi? They're going to have their own kind of, I think about, I don't know if you remember, like when Kindle first came out, Amazon Kindle, they advertise, they kind of have their whisper network, to where they can still, you can still, they can still upload and download the books and stuff to your Kindle without Wi-Fi access.
Yeah.
That's where I see, a lot of this going forward, is these things are going to have some type of higher level connectivity that doesn't have anything to do with us, just so they can stay in a constant state of surveillance.
Yeah. And that's exactly where it's going. And, this is where, all of the cities that are upgrading their street light systems to LED lights, that is part of the innovative change that you're describing, because those LED lights and any LED light bulb that you have, it emits a certain bandwidth and frequency, and data can be overlaid onto that frequency. And, a network, it's called Li-Fi, and a Li-Fi network can be created without you having any need for a router, a modem, I don't even know if those are still around, or anything that controls the bandwidth in your home or around you. Like, this can all be controlled through the cloud, through different systems. And there is basically nothing that we can do about it besides take out that infrastructure, take down the infrastructure that is designed to communicate with other connected devices through 5G, 6G networks, and through Wi-Fi.
Well,
so people really need to know what's going on here.
Yeah. And just to kind of, I think, maybe say that in another way. So you're talking about this Li-Fi network. So let's just think about that for a second. A network is the most powerful when it has the most components.
Yeah.
So, like one LED light is really not that, it's not that big a deal, but you basically daisy chain, 50 in your house. Now that's a much more powerful surveillance broadcasting. It's a real network that actually has some power. Now, what if your neighbor has 50 lights, or across the street, or your town, or there's 500,000 lights within your metro area? You've got a pretty strong network now that can actually, do something. I mean, it's not that hard to comprehend that is what's coming when you have everything that's literally plugged into electricity operates in a network fashion, right on top of each other. It's real easy for all those things to communicate, whether we turn them on or not. They have electricity, they're communicating.
Yeah, that is a perfect way to describe it, and all through, if you look at any of the white papers, government documents on innovation, on AI, on fourth industrial revolution technologies, it all talks about connected networks, and the connected network with many different nodes, as they call it. This is what is the basis for a web of control, and it enables the creation of what is called in one Ericsson, the cell phone provider. What that I read a paper where they say that network is the basis of a digitally programmable world. And it talks about, I mean, this is no joke. This is a real white paper. I've shared screenshots from it, from 2022, February 2022, Ericsson paper on 6G. And it says that we're moving toward this digitally programmable world where you have, say, the internet of, not just things, but internet of your senses. So talk about how you can change people's behaviors through stimulating their senses in all sorts of different ways through nanotech and all kinds of scary technology. But in that paper, it specifically says that agents in the real world will be carrying out commands issued by AIs and other programs that exist in the digital world. Wow. So this is exactly what you were talking about, like taking our orders from machines, and this is a company, a major wireless ICT company that, I'm sure I don't know if it's on the Fortune 500 list of companies, but it's a big worldwide, telecom firm, and they partner with the UN, they partner with the WEF, they partner with governments, and they're not fooling around. They're actually trying to do this. And they say, the long title of that paper is like a cyber physical world. And everybody's seen the World Economic Forum's little promo video for the fourth industrial revolution that says, we're moving toward a convergence of biological, physical, and digital worlds. Well, it's not just, a bunch of goofballs at the WEF that are doing this. It's easy. I think lots of people who have, say a practical, commonsensical worldview, and they're sort of insulated from these things. They say, those guys just like to talk that big talk. Well, here is a for-profit corporation that specifically says, we are erecting a cyber physical world in which human beings are going to take commands from the digital world.
Yeah, here you go, Ericsson.
Go.
Co-creating a cyber physical world introduction.
Yeah.
Let me make that a little bit bigger so people can.
Yeah. See if there's like a wonderful little triangle. It's a graph that has a pyramid, and you can see it says embedded sensors everywhere. I mean, you can just, they are not joking. Yeah. I think it's like the capabilities. I mean, there's your network, applications. I think there should be, 6G architecture. I mean, look at that, see, they're going to have,
it's I like this end-to-end management. That's
of everything. And they talk about, It does. It says embedded sensors everywhere. So there you go. There's your end-to-end management again, and they're visualizing the nodes. And
Yeah, let's go down. We're only we're only about halfway through this.
there you go. 6G
Here's infrastructure
infrastructure,
and devices. Here's
integrated
integrated sensing.
sensing. Yeah, device diversity. I mean, look at all this. See, they're going to talk with your satellites, with, um, you know, it's like, okay, these different factors that they're like, you've got your inclusion, resilience, insight, immersion, autonomy. I mean, all those buzzwords, and they're going to deliver this world that is supposed to.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you said that, because we talked about that before in another one. These are buzzwords. This is literal marketing. This is like, make you feel good. We're getting ready to control every aspect because we're using wonderful words that sound so great. I mean, literally, that's what it is.
Yeah. So
awareness, insight, resilience, inclusion. Oh, Kyle, this is utopia. This sounds, yeah.
And it's just like you were saying about, the green program. And, it's been marketed as what's going to save us. See, oh, look at those guys.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, maybe,
The top guys, they look a little more sinister than everybody else.
Yeah. You might have to actually download the paper to get that graphic, that I can send it to you. But like the green marketing, it's not for conservation. It's, because if we think about it, like the appliances that were built 30 years ago, not up to green standards, they're the ones that still work. They're the ones that didn't end up in a landfill. They're the ones that, you could fix a number of times and they would just keep going. So the corporations that are moving toward these green appliances that have the capability to send your usage information to the manufacturer, to the government, to the corporations, to your insurance company, all of those different models of appliances, they have been created under the marketing or manufacturing model of planned obsolescence, right? So they're going to fail. I mean, I had an appliance guy tell me that any appliance that you buy that uses water, based on normal usage, which because I have 4 kids, I far exceed normal usage. Like they say, using your dishwasher 3 to 5 times a week is normal usage. Well, sometimes I have to run it 3 times a day. I mean, kids, and if I cook for kids, and I cook every day, it's a lot of dishes. But the appliance repairman, he said, you should plan on your machine lasting about 7 years. So for me, that's about 3 years. And that has proved to be correct. And why do they do that? If they really cared about the green agenda, if they really wanted stuff to stay out of landfills, if they really wanted to use fewer materials, you wouldn't have to buy a new dishwasher every 2.5 years. No, what they really want to do is make sure that you have to replace your appliance so that it will come with the latest version of track, trace, control technology.
Yeah.
And you can't buy most appliances now unless they have that, connected feature. And like you say, you do not have to have the internet at your home. You don't have to be paying for internet service for these appliances to talk to each other and to talk to the bad guys. They're doing it without your consent.
Well, here I want to give an example and then make a point. And I know we're already at 1:15.
Yeah.
So
we always do that, huh?
In just a minute. But the best refrigerator, the best performing refrigerator that I have is from the guy that I bought my house from 20 years ago, who had that refrigerator probably for 20 years. It's a 1980s GE refrigerator.
Yeah.
It's the best ice maker, the best refrigerator, never had a problem with it, never anything. The thing's still going like a champ.
Is it beige?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. It's not a cool color, so that's why they had to get rid of it, I guess. But
Yeah, it's
uh,
true. Everybody has these stories, and people just need to think, "Why is this? Why is
yeah.
this?" Because it's not
Well,
profitable to make a quality machine that doesn't spy on you and that's gonna last 30 years.
yeah.
That does not make money for the bad guys.
Well, and a point I want to make before we get off, and I'll get your take on this. This isn't 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s America where you have thousands of manufacturers. Okay.
Yeah,
There's only a handful of manufacturers that make all of these electronics in the entire world.
yeah,
And to say that they basically can create their own network. I mean, you have manufacturers that make light bulbs down to appliances, down to, I mean, every single thing that's in your house could possibly come from a higher level, same manufacturer with code and one or two pieces of hardware in there to connect to their own network. So
yeah,
it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it's on purpose that you don't have mom and pop America anymore. You don't have strong middle class, strong manufacturing, independent manufacturers. We've seen that consolidation in every single industry, with kind of the last industries we see kind of going by the wayside is the consolidation, like in news, where you used to have all these independent news stations and all these independent little newspapers and TV stations. Now they're just big conglomerates. It's kind of the last one to go. But as far as manufacturing goes, they moved all that stuff out of the United States,
yeah,
gave incentives to China and all these places years and years and years ago, in a plan for consolidation, because as a
yeah,
regular person, you can't compete in that scale of manufacturing and providing some type of product into the market unless you're in like one of these major corporations. And even if you create something, I would say, you got a little personal shaver, at your house, a little grooming shaver. What if Ericsson made the components of that shaver? That shaver literally goes into their network as just another node. It's just another little placeholder in their network transmitting data. I mean, you have no idea. You'd never know,
you'd
but they
never know.
know. They
And
know.
the nanotech, I mean, this tiny, tiny these tiny technologies, or technologies that can be created to fit these, minuscule
Yeah.
sizes so that you can't see it. There's no way upon examining, some metal part that you have to purchase from someplace else. There's no way that you can look at it to determine whether or not it has the capability for connectedness with the network. So I mean, you're exactly right. We're seeing massive consolidations who are moving to a model of, the one world company store. And they can ensure that all of their parts speak with one another and share, the data on us. And they can also just, the one world holding company, it can cut supply chains.
Yeah.
So just like your water was cut off, I mean, if you wanted to say build your own washing machine, you know, you can't. I mean, I don't think most people could, mine the metal and create I mean, this sounds silly, right? To even be talking about this, but when you look at this program, then sometimes you think about wild things, wild possibilities. We just can't do that. You would have to rely on some other provider for the basic components, and those can, just like we saw after COVID, those supply chains can be shut off, at will. And I mean, the US has been it has been under a long process of controlled demolition, you know,
Yeah.
and you had to take away all of the production of real assets, real things that people could touch, taste, hold, use, and you had to, sort of fool people into thinking that digital experiences and services were a sound basis for economic growth. Well, it's not, because as you know, as you mentioned, Michael, now the new economy, it's just based on trading data. And so what happens, like, we have to provide the data. So we're the ones feeding this system that preys upon us, and that
Yeah.
is the sustainable development circular economy noose, is what I like to call it. It's a feedback loop. If you think of how electricity works, and that's so important to their program, you have to have a closed circuit. Everything has to, be touching each other for electricity to do what it's supposed to do. And that is the model for controlling us and for controlling the economy. We create the data, and then the data, like, is used to make us create more data. And it's a noose, it's a trap.
Yeah.
So
Well,
on
let,
that
let me
happy
give
note,
you let me give everybody the most simple definition of the word digital. Okay. Digital literally just means two-way communication. Analog was only one way. Like, just think
yeah,
about your old TV was analog. They just pushed a signal and you received it. There was nothing coming back out of that analog TV going back down the line. Once they switched over to digital TV,
yeah,
now all the communication goes like this. It goes both directions. So in all essence, anything and everything that says digital is just like this move in the finance industry to go away from cash into digital. Cash is analog. They can't track it. That's on, you get it and then that's it. There's no other communication going back. Now, if you move to digital, now they can see every single transaction. And literally, in my opinion, that's what digital means. Digital just means it's a two-way communication now instead of just the one way to you.
yeah.
So,
That's really helpful. That I'm going to use that. I'm going to
hey,
use that going forward.
I could contribute.
Educate the people, right?
Well,
That is
what can we do, Julianne? I mean, what can we possibly? I mean, at this point, I mean, this stuff is rolling out regardless of our current condition of we're just the consumers of this. But how can we actually? I mean, yes, we're trying to educate, we're trying to learn, we're trying to get the word out. But how can we actually do something? I mean, do we literally just not buy this stuff, or do we just say, I want full disclosure, I'm on to you? I mean, what can we actually do to kind of subvert this or slow it down a little bit?
well, I once heard someone say or suggest this, and it sounds wild, but I think it's a pretty good suggestion, is that you get a group of people and you start taking down the infrastructure, and you do it peacefully, and you do it without breaking the infrastructure, and you pack it all up and you put it in a box and you hand it back. And that sounds wild. It sounds nuts. But unless we start thinking of things like that, you know, I don't I don't think we're going to get out of that loop of, of being controlled by this technology and just being, consumers of it and being affected by it. At some
Yeah.
point, we're going to have to dismantle that infrastructure, and that doesn't have to be in, you know, in a violent or
Yeah.
illegal way. Like, you get a majority of people who live in a place and you say, we don't want this, and you peacefully remove it. And before that, I think you try to use as many technicalities of law while that still exists. You look at, say, right of way requirements and easement regulations, and you say, oh, look, this pole was installed 5 inches too close, and you just try to back things up, clog the system, and that might give people time to think about what's going on. But at some point, that infrastructure is going to have to be taken down because, as you say, I mean, it will function without us consenting to its functioning. So the only way I see to really stop it is to remove it altogether.
Yeah. Well, we got our work cut out for us. There's no doubt about
We do.
that. But maybe at some point someone hears a podcast like this and they have the ability to really start that revolution, I'll say, to take, so we don't have to comply so much, so we can actually, live our lives free and the way that we're designed, originally designed in this country to live. But it's going to be tough, I think.
I think so too. But, I'd say if you're in a small town, if you have a constitutional sheriff, work with him and get the stuff out. And maybe it's easier to do in a small town, but that gets the ball rolling and it gives people hope. So, we pray for a miracle.
All right. Well, yes, ma'am. As always, you're the best, Julianne. I mean, just the stuff, the white papers and the data and just all your presentations. I mean, it's so needed, I think, in this turbulent control time we're in. So I just can't thank you enough.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I love, the conversations with you and with Jenni, and I always look forward to this. So thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll see you.
Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Julianne. All right. Well, there we go. Imagine that, a world of just high level technological networks that are just going to that's just going to take over. And Julia was really chiming in with a lot of stuff. Thank you, Julia. We always appreciate everything you say. And I will say, Julia made several comments that I didn't get to read them, but yes, this whole control grid, this compliance just rollout, this has all been, war planned and game planned over in China, over in these countries where they have a more communist government where they can actually install these things. It just didn't come out of thin air, just to say whatever. But I'll always say, don't just buy into the marketing of all these things, because remember, climate change used to be global warming, which used to be all kinds of stuff. And I mean, they have all these scare tactics, but these people know how to market. These people know how to push your buttons and say the right words. Just like in COVID, I say COVID, it's more like convid. That entire scam was literally just branded in a way to, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your neighbor. You're helping the community. You're doing it for everybody. So just remember, they don't have your best interest at heart, especially with all this surveillance grid and technology. And I can tell you, I don't want to live in a world to where every single thing I say and do is monitored by some corporation that's in bed with the government. That is literal fascism. I mean, that is the definition of fascism, is when you have these large corporations that are partners with the government. And that's where we're moving 100%. And if we don't actually do something, then, we're in big trouble. But we're at a place we can still make some changes. I believe it in my heart. This country is the greatest country ever. It's the most free. We were the most moral. That pendulum has to swing both ways. And I think it's swinging back to our side, to the conservative Christian moral side. And I can't wait for that to happen. It can't happen soon enough, in my opinion, but we do have to go through some bad to get to the good. And hopefully we can rein a lot of this stuff in and restore liberty and freedom. Jenni's going to be out probably for another week at least. We've got a replay Friday, and then next Wednesday, I'll be coming on with Mary from V1SUT, and we're going to talk about some more major stories that she has. And I may try to have her, if we've got time, I want to have her just kind of educate everybody in how she does research, how she stays so organized, how she comes upon this thing, just so we can kind of know how someone that's as good as she is, how she does it, maybe give us a little bit of a roadmap to start out so we can be a better citizen journalist ourselves. And so we'll be talking to Mary on the next Wednesday, Replay Friday. As always, thank you so much. Go to our website, rope2.org. Also, please support Jenni. She's still fighting, and I think she's making some progress with her lawsuit against the state election board. So that is another major thing we need to stay up on and support, because it's hard. It's hard going against the system. And when you're just one person, one or two people, that's what the system wants. They just want to always crush us and stop any type of action that we may have. So anyway, I appreciate everybody being on here. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks, Julia. And we will see you guys next Wednesday.